Hey everybody, welcome to the Sharp Tongue Podcast. I'm your girl, Jessimae. Can you do that by heart now? And then I usually go, how you living? How you loving? How you learning? I mix it up a little bit. You know, I like to have like little things that just come out of me naturally. Like a baby. No, it's way too soon. By the way, birth, as natural as we say it is, seems really, really brutal. And I guess you can't have beautiful things without destruction. And we get into that in this podcast. But before we get into that, I would like to ask you to take your cute little fanny and watch it, march it right on over to my YouTube page. That's right, your girl's on YouTube. And if you're listening, you probably know. But have you really gone there? I need you to go there for me, for you, for everyone, for the world, so they can enjoy my face. If you want to watch this podcast, you can do so on my YouTube page, youtube.com/Jessimae Peluso. That's right. I don't want to brag, but I am on the tube of you, and there is no tube without you. So I'm asking you to get on over there, subscribe, like, share, all the good things. And we also are back up and running on our fan page, patreon.com/Jessimae Peluso as well. So you're going to be getting a bonus episode there as well as extras. And I appreciate everyone's patience with my life and my healing and getting through all of the, for a lack of a better term, tumultuous experiences that I've gone through in the past 4 years that have literally been a fucking roller coaster of trauma and healing. And I have dug in as hard as I can to get to work and show up and be better than I was before. And fuck if it isn't hard. So I appreciate everyone who's stuck through me on this podcast, stuck it through with us, who's come back, who has shared the podcast with their friends. And it means the world to me. And I've told you this before, but this podcast has, without me even knowing it, kept me afloat during the hardest times in my life. It's given me a focal point and has been a buoy through everything, through the wild waters of life. So thank you so much ahead of time. You guys are fucking awesome. And I really, really appreciate all of your support. And speaking of support, you guys, we got a fun one today. We have a fun sponsor for the podcast. I did a little digging on Dipsea. Dipsea, has anyone heard of Dipsea? Well, you know, sometimes doing less can lead to so much more. And Dipsea is basically a website that has erotic stories that are catered to women. I know it sounds strange, right? Like autoerotica. And don't think of David Corrigan. Was that his name? Who's David Carradine? We're not talking about that type of autoerotica. We're talking about like listening to erotic stories. And also RIP for David. We miss you. Kill Bill will always remain in our hearts as one of the greatest cinematic adventures of all time, and your career was fantastic. But this is about women. This is not to belittle your death, but hey, the rebirth of a woman's sexual exploration, which I feel is kind of missing in the world. In Dipsea stories, they basically believe in less analyzing and more feeling your feelings. So it is literally for women. Here's the thing about women. The devil's in the details, and sometimes we like to be devilish. You know, sometimes for women, the details are the things that get us going. You know, they always say it takes a while to warm a woman up. We're kind of like a car. Well, these autoerotic stories can sort of help you warm yourself up. And damn if we don't deserve that. You know, less stressing and more easing into things. And I know it might sound a little different, and maybe you're like, oh, I don't know about that, but just try it. You can do it on your own time. You can literally be walking your dog and listening to erotica. Not that that's what I did this morning. Not me walking and listening to Dipsea in the morning. You know, I feel like in this world with social media and everything that we have at our fingertips, we're just scrolling at things that don't really add any value to our life. So you might as well give Dipsea a try and have a little bit of less scrolling and a little bit more of savoring in the moment, like less pressure and more pleasure. Do you remember that from Chris Farley? He was like, this body is made for pleasure. Well, a woman's body is made for pleasure too. And damn if we shouldn't learn how to give ourselves a little bit of pleasure. I don't know about you, but whenever I am intimate, I love when a guy talks to me. We're going to get real personal. I love hearing things. I don't know if that makes me like an audiosexual. I'm definitely a sapiosexual. I know people are probably like, oh, that's the new moist, but I really am sapiosexual. Like, I don't know about you, but Neil deGrasse Tyson is so hot. Bill Nye, move over. Drip drop lollipop. I honestly, that's just my style, you know? So I don't know about you girls, from like how you start your mornings to how you wind down at night and everything in between. But you guys, you girls and guys, but mainly you girls, you deserve to enjoy it all. And Dipsea Stories wants you to find joy and confidence in all of your life, in and out of the bedroom. Okay. So it's basically an app full of sexy stories. And now they even have like brand new written stories, and they have a full staff. They have a full staff that's fully committed to ideating these stories and picking each word to make sure they don't lose you and that it really keeps you and it draws you in. And I think as women, you know, there's a huge gap for our sexual exploration and for us to feel comfortable being sexual. And the co-founders, Gina and Faye, felt like, you know, that it was their job to tell the story of female sexuality and sort of fill in the gaps there for us. You know, sex is definitely mental as it is physical. So we all need, more than anything, we need something to provide us with some color in our sexual lives. You know, sometimes a vibrator doesn't cut it. Okay? It better not cut you, because that's a bad vibrator. But sometimes a vibrator is not enough. And that's where Dipsea comes in. So you guys can just close your eyes and let yourself get lost in a world where only good things happen. I'm going to ask them if I can do some copy. I really feel like I could get in there and read some Dipsea stories. What do you guys think? But not in a funny way. Like, I would really give it my all. You know, I would give it my all, especially for Dipsea, because with Dipsea, pleasure is their priority. Okay. Your pleasure is their priority. So when is the last time a guy has said that to you? Hello? So you guys get over to Dipsea and explore your fantasies in a safe, shame-free way. That's the most important thing for women. And I honestly, you guys know, I love men too. I speak for men. I'm an advocate for both, for all people. I feel like everyone deserves love and joy, but I'm speaking from a female experience. Women, we've felt too much shame surrounding our sex. So get over there and give it a try. Okay. And for our listeners of the show, Dipsea is offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/sharp. That's DIPSEA stories.com/SHARP. And that's 30 days of full access for free when you go to Dipsea, DIPSEA stories.com/sharp. SHRP with your girl Jessimae. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know. Try it out. I'm trying it out too. I'm into it. I got your girl's into it, okay? Anything and everything to help us feel a full life. So let me know. Send me, if you feel comfortable, send me stories. If you feel comfortable with me sharing them on the podcast, email me at jessimaepelusocomedy@gmail.com and let me know how you felt about the app. I really want you guys to use it, and I want to hear how it did you. Did it do you good, girl? And speaking of being done good, I'm excited about this episode in a switch to a non-sexual conversation. This guy is somebody who gave me my first shot to be in my first movie, and he fucking cut me from the movie. I'm gonna say that to him. Every time I see him, every time I talk to him, I say it to him. He made a dream come true, and then he ripped it from my hands. He broke my fingers in the process. No, he honestly gave me such a really fun experience with him and Peter Billingsley in the opening act. And this guy is just so funny, so personable, has always been so generous and kind to me. He is the co-creator and actor from Sullivan and Sons, and he's a stand-up comedian, and he's hilarious, and he's done a bunch of USO tours, and we talked about where comedy takes you in this wild life and the wild ride that we're on. So I hope you enjoy this episode with the one, the only, the hilarious and lovely Mr. Steve Byrne. Sharp Tongue Podcast. Beep, 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 beep. You're listening to the Sharp Tongue Podcast. I'm your host, Jessimae Peluso. It's a personal look. Well, it's not really a look because it's a podcast. I'm already fucking this up. This is kind of like a verbal comedy diary, a deep look into the crevices of my mind. It's gonna get dirty. You might cry. You'll probably laugh. Hopefully you'll laugh. The whole point is for you to laugh, but you also might cry. I talk about my family. I talk about farts. I talk about love, loss, comedy, how hard it is to make it in this biz. I'm a fucking professional. Each week it's something different. Sometimes I have a guest host. Sometimes it's gonna be a movie companion episode. Sometimes I just ramble about the bullshit I dealt with the week before. You never know what you're gonna get. It's raw, uncut, and funny. It's me. How are you, friend?
Doing well, hanging in there. Yeah. Same old.
It's nice to see your face.
Yeah, it's good to see people that you miss during all this stuff, because I moved out of LA, so I would run into you quite often, and now I'm in Nashville, so I don't get to run into familiar faces that I miss seeing. But it's great to see you.
It looks like we're in the same room.
It does, yes. Yeah, we have similar a hodgepodge of frames and nothing. But yours is actually I see the chaplain up there.
I got a chaplain.
Yeah.
Right here. I painted that.
You painted that? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great. There. I just saw the Robert Downey film a few nights ago because I'd seen a Buster Keaton documentary, and it made me kind of go down this rabbit hole on HBO Max of all the classic films that they have on there.
That's right. Cool. Robert De Niro played Chaplin.
Robert Downey.
Robert Downey. Yeah. Robert De Niro.
That would have been much different.
Can you imagine that Chaplin?
I don't know so many Tommy guns were in that movie.
Charlie Chaplin was such an interesting character. I always think about this is terrible to say, but I think about pedophilia comes to mind only because he was with a very, very young girl. Rumor has it.
Yeah.
But this was also the early 1900s.
It's so crazy because even one of my, I don't know why, but I'm sure when you're on the road, you have a film you just put on all the time, and you're like, I'll put this on, I'll just pass out. The Aviator, I think it's such a beautifully shot film, and it's not one of Scorsese's, I guess, most well received, but something about that time period and seeing nostalgic old Hollywood when it was glamorous. But another aspect of it, again, is like you mentioned, that so many of these men in power were, able to, I don't know, I guess maybe it was just societally accepted to date somebody that was still in high school. It was,
I think so. And it obviously, as we evolve and mature as people and a culture, we realize what we've been doing that doesn't work and what we've been doing that is inappropriate.
Yeah.
But it's also difficult when those things arise to compare it to yesteryear and what happened in yesteryear, because we weren't in yesteryear. It was kind of okay then, even though it's not okay now. But it being okay then doesn't, it's a weird balance that people have with that. It's I constantly think it's hard to uphold to yesterday's standards or today's standards to yesterday or today. It's all we can deal with is the right now. And
right. But I
think
even back then, you got to be if you're a guy in your 30s or 40s and you're successful in Hollywood, and it's you're picking up your girlfriend from high school. It's what are you guys what do you? Because as we get older, I have friends that are now in their 40s and in their 50s, and they're dating a girl in their 20s. And when you're 20 and that's happening, you're oh, I guess she's older guys. But when you're an older guy and that's your friend doing that, it's what do you obviously there's the 30 minutes in the bed, but what do you have in common? What do you talk about? I'm sure
what do you talk about?
There's those few relationships where she or he is an old soul and it's a May December, and it does work. I get it, but I don't know. To me, I always get the heebies.
Yeah, the old soul argument, I know, and I've heard, and I've felt like that myself, but it also feels is that just somebody who's been possessed by a ghost? Like if you call it 14-year-old an old soul, that's not an old soul. That's a demon possession.
I think that's, well, write that down.
Okay, is that fun? I probably should. That was kind
genuinely hilarious. Yes. Genuinely hilarious. Like that girl, Catherine McPhee, is with that guy that's
David
like
Foster.
Exactly. And I look at it, I'm just like, what in God's name is going on? I get it. He's established. He's a talented guy and she's a talented, but I'm just like, I don't, it's not for me to judge. They're happy, whatever. It's fine. But it's still like, you gotta, when they leave the room, you gotta be like, what the fuck is going on over there, right?
Yeah, like what do they share cereal at 8 p.m.? Are they both getting into the fucking Fruit Loops? What is it? Because old men love cereal. I don't know if you've experienced that in your life with like your father or grandparents, but like there's something about my dad, like him specifically. He fucking loved a bowl of cereal at like 8 p.m.
What's his go-to?
You're gonna be shocked.
Is it like Captain Crunch or something?
No, maybe this won't be shocking. It was just shocking to me. Shredded wheat. Oh, why?
Well, Nabisco shredded wheat, like the one where it's got the sugar coating?
Well, he would sometimes buy the non-sugar coated and the sugar coated and just mix them. He was a chef.
He's getting older. He's getting healthier. But the Nabisco shredded wheat with the sugar on the sugar coated, I totally get. Yes.
And when it gets mushy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then you drink the milk and you get the shreds. Forget it.
The little chunks? Come on.
I'm possessed.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I love it.
I love that we got right into pedophilia. It's just this sort of thing. Whenever I hear Chaplin, I'm like, he was a pedophile. But only in today's standards. I think that's like,
judging by today's standards, for sure. I mean, nowadays it's just, but then like, it's weird. Like Seinfeld got a pass. He was like,
wasn't Jessica Young?
Show. No, the girl he dated, I forget her name, but
the 17-year-old who was in high school.
Was in high school, and he got a total pass on that. It was just like,
whoa, I forgot about that. He actually was talking about that on Smartless.
Yeah,
I don't know if do you listen to podcasts?
Rarely. Because,
right.
So it's just like almost like when your friend says, "Hey, you want to go see some stand up tonight?" It's like, fuck
no, bro. It's going to be a no for me, dog. Yeah. And I feel the same way.
A hard pass.
I usually don't. It's a hard pass.
Who's the last comic you saw where you became an audience member? You were not a comic, where you just checked out and you're like, oh, wow.
Wow. That's such a good. Is it crazy that I can't recall? I'm trying to think because. Tell me yours.
I'll tell you.
Do you have one?
I've come across a handful. There was a kid named Luca that opened for me at the Comedy Vault that I'm going to start going on the road. He's going to come on the road with me a few times. Like he reminded me of like a younger version of myself. And I was like, wow, he was energetic. He had good jokes, but I was like, oh, at some point he's going to turn a corner and be great. And then I was at Zany's the other night in Nashville. And I saw Aaron Weber. And just like took it like just really great voice, very, very energetic, but still. And then saw this guy, Mike Goodwin, who's another great comic. And John Crist, I see him all the time in Nashville. He's a really popular Christian comic, like millions of followers. Again, I'm, coming from LA.
Yes, I've heard of him.
New York. I didn't know anything about the Christian comedy scene. Now being in the South, I'm like, oh, I guess this guy's pretty big. And then you see him just like, wow, this like, yeah, I totally get it. I mean, very, very talented, just effortless on stage. And you understand why he commands so much gravity. But those are just names that come to my mind where I was like, oh, my God. But then I was in New York City a few weeks ago and I watched Jessica Kirson and I could just check out.
She's fun. Jess is fun. Jess is like, that's a good one. I haven't seen her in a while because I haven't been in New York.
Yeah.
But she's somebody who I love. I actually genuinely watch on social media. I look at her stuff and she's just, it's someone where you love to see someone like that succeed and get attention and appreciation because she's just so, you're right. She's just so fun to watch. You can tell she's just in her fucking element up there.
Yeah. And she, oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think what's so funny is the dichotomy of like having such a sweet maternal voice off stage and so kind, and then she's on stage shitting on her hair and her body and just dumping on herself. So it's like, no matter how harsh she goes on somebody, what I love about her, I think it's true of anybody that does crowd work that's really good at it, is that she turns it on herself more. She'll insult herself more than anybody in the audience. And
she balances it out.
Yes, she does.
She really does. That's how she can maneuver through trash talking, without a better term, the audience. You know, she fucks with the audience, but it's a communal exchange, you know, not in the sense that the audience is talking back to her, but she's, you know, balancing it out with the deprecating thing. And she also was the first comedian when I watched, I realized, because I'm also very physical, and you know, you've been in the industry, and you have friends that run the spectrum of comedy, from your standard joke delivery to, you know, a performative approach. But you also know, I would assume, that can be a stigma to being a physical comedian, you know?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's
I mean, look, like you, if you transcribe, it's so funny because like knowing Sebastian off stage, it's like he's so grounded, and then you see him on stage and so physical. I think he's one of those guys, if you transcribed his material, they go, well, I don't understand. Like, I'm reading this material. How is this funny? And then flash forward Madison Square Garden, you're like, oh my God. Like, he's the epitome to me of a performer. I think Bert Kreischer is like an entertainer. And then somebody like Jeff Ross or Dave Attell is a comic, you know what I mean? Yes. So I think there's different muscles, right? Yeah,
there are different muscles. And for me, she was the first one that made me feel comfortable in my performative skin, being that, you know, energetic and physical aspect was what I enjoyed and what I was natural at, and what I felt I was ashamed of because, you know, I wasn't a Seinfeld, or I wasn't, you know, an Anthony Jeselnik, where, you know, every word matters. So it's interesting when you start to see people that sort of validate how you perform. And who was that for you? Like, who's a comic?
You. When I saw you, just this wrecking ball, and she's like, oh my God, what is this? Hello. No, I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, performing the joke or exhibiting the joke. And that's why, like, when I'd run into you at the Improv, I always enjoyed watching you, because I like somebody who's a little more physical. I like somebody who's, I don't know. Look, I appreciate across the gamut. I appreciate everybody. But for me, if I was to go to a comedy club and kick my feet up, I don't know. I personally have always gravitated towards somebody that's a little more physical. And even you look at somebody like Brian Regan, who is the perfect combination of written joke and great performer as well. So, you know,
he's hysterical.
Oh my God. And one of the like nicest guys off stage. And I've run into him the last few years, getting to know him a lot better. And, you know, I like to pride myself on kicking a few back with the whiskey, but this guy, I mean, it takes it to a whole nother level. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like a minor leaguer again. This guy's.
Why? Can he drink?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yes. And
I have one drink now, and I'm like,
oh, really? Well,
yeah, because
you're
I'm a weed smoker.
Yeah.
I have blunts like it's nothing.
Right, yeah.
I used to be a big drinker, but LA has, you know, it's grown on me. Literally, it's grown weed on me.
That's right. Yeah. But that's your. But do you like? Is that something where, like, if you could on stage, you could just roll on up and
you know,
because comics, we can drink on stage, right?
Yeah.
But you never seen a comic really, you know, be able to just kind of puff away.
I fucking dream of the day. And there's been so many times where I'm like, what are they going to do?
Yeah, I would think at some point with it being
like,
legal,
what are they going to do?
Is there like a law like in LA where you can't do it on stage? Because it's legal now, but.
Well, I'm sure it's the sort of thing where it hasn't happened enough for them to create the law.
Right, yeah.
Where, you know, wouldn't that be so cool if I was the one and they had to create the law and they called it like Jessimae marijuana? That was stupid.
Well, Doug Benson would be very, very jealous. He'd want to.
Oh, he'd be so jealous. He would be so jelly. Yeah. Are you kidding me? I have dreamed about it, you know, just like sparking up on stage. But it's like The Chappelle thing, I'm not comparing myself to Chappelle, but in this moment, he smokes cigarettes.
All the time, yeah. I remember when he did on SNL, the monologue, I was like, wow, they let him do that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like similar to like Snoop Dogg. He won't roll unless he can roll. He doesn't show up to a gig. He's not coming through unless he can have a blunt or something. And I saw that I did the really critically acclaimed VH1 show, Hip Hop Squares. Thank you. Please hold your applause. I was the white square.
You were the diversity casting for that show, right? Yeah. We got to get one white person. All right.
And they called me back. I was on that show like a dozen times. Yeah, I was like, am I your white friend? Is this what it feels like?
This is what it feels like. And then you were there. And you became the go-to.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was cool to see Snoop there, and he, you know, that's where I learned. I was like, wow, it's so cool. Snoop Dogg showing up to this. And they were like, yeah, this is the one gig he does, you know, besides all the other things he does, because he just shows up and smokes weed. And if he can't do that, he won't show up. And I was like, I like that style. I really like that style. But
there's like the smoking section, then there's the smoking section.
Exactly. And it was so funny.
Did you get to smoke with Snoop when you're working on VH1?
I kind of inadvertently did.
Yeah.
You know, only because we were all on set and the green room was green. It was the green it should be. But we weren't like passing joints to each other. But, you know, I hugged him and I was like, you're just amazing. And he was like, oh, shawty. You know, he's just like, he's just so sweet and soft spoken and present, you know? But he, no, we didn't actually get to share a joint, but it was like this. I've had these moments. I wonder what one is for you, where you do jobs and you just think, wow, this is pretty fucking cool. I had one with you, and I had one on the set of VH1 where I come out of my green room that I was hotboxing with Eva Marcel, that model who's so dope. She's so fun and amazing. And I come out of the green room and I look to my left, and Ice Cube, not Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, because his son, O'Shea Jackson, was on the show.
Oh, wow. Ice
Cube's just puffing in his green room, and I was just like...
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Like, fuck. Is it Friday? My life has turned into a Friday episode. He was like, what's up? And I'm like, can I take a picture with you? Have you had those moments where you kind of, you know, even though you're in the mix, you kind of not starstruck, but you're just in a moment of awe. Like, this is really cool. This career brought me to this place, and here's this person that I enjoy.
There's
I feel like you've had a lot of those moments.
Countless experiences. And I was talking to Billy Gardell the other day, who's on Mike and Molly and all that stuff.
So nice.
The nicest. And he posted this picture of him with Springsteen backstage that I'd seen. And I was like, man, that's so cool. You met the boss. You know, I was born in Freehold, and, you know, it's where he's from, and Born to Run's about there. And, you know, he's a big Springsteen fan. He was like, comedy got me backstage. And we had this conversation about like where comedy's taken us. Like, you know, it's not just like the people you meet, but like going on USO tours and being in war zones in Afghanistan, Iraq, and, you know, going to Beijing, and, you know, like going to the very base my parents met at in Seoul City, South Korea. And like,
wow, I just got fucking chills.
It was wild. Yeah, it was really like, oh my God, this is really cool. And
when did you do a USO tour?
Well, my brother, my father, my uncles, my brother, they all served, and I was the only one that never served. So in 2004, my brother and I were in New York City on 9/11. So being there at that time, like, everybody had this patriotic gumption of like, oh, I should sign up. My brother actually did, and he signed up, and within a year he was in South Korea, much like my father, instead of going to Iraq. And then in 2003, he got stationed over in Iraq. And when that happened, Colin Quinn was going on a USO tour and knew my brother was over there. And so I said, oh my God, could I please go? And maybe I'll get to see my brother. He said, of course. Because this was at a moment in time where on a daily basis, CBS or NBC would show like the soldiers that had passed serving our country. And the internet isn't what the internet is today, right? And cell phones aren't what cell phones were in 2004. So it was still there, but like I didn't have the correspondence with him that anybody would want. So you're just praying to God every day for like a year and a half that he's okay. And so I got to go over, and it was such an incredible experience going over, seeing men and women in forward operating bases, which means they're out to establish territory in certain areas for people that don't know. And they're literally living in tents and makeshift like burners to get a hot meal, and not showering for days to set up these encampments while supplies slowly come in. And when you're choppered into these things, you're just like, oh my God, you're like, I'll never complain about anything ever again. And I think even when we stand at an arena or a stadium for the soldiers that served, I think when you're there, you're realizing, oh, these are people that are missing out on Christmas, first kisses, first steps for a baby, birthdays, not seeing a loved one go on. So you realize it's not just the fact that they're there, but all the sacrifices that come along from the human element. And so I got to know quite a few individuals over the course of that first one. And so I just was so enamored with it. I did like 10 since then. And we were about to do another one on before COVID, and then COVID hit. And for 2 years, I haven't been able to go over, but they're the best experience.
Was it Kuwait?
I've been to Kuwait.
Were you going to go to Kuwait? Because I was going to do one right before quarantine too. That would be so fun to go with you.
Oh, yeah. I'd love it.
That would be a blast.
I'll reach out. I'll let them know, because I'd love to do it with you. It'd be so fun. And
that would be fun, because it's like I did, what was it, 2018? I went for a Christmas one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was.
What was your experience like?
It was the first year. It was the first holiday season without my dad. My dad had passed 2 months prior, and I had read about grief and going through it. And one of the suggestions was to change your routine and change your traditions and create new traditions as a healthy way to sort of cope with the loss. And so I thought, well, the holidays are always big for us, and since he's not around, maybe I need to take myself out of the element where he normally would be and put myself in someplace else where I'm serving and feeling like I'm contributing. So I'm not focusing on what I've lost. I'm experiencing people who have lost so much more. And maybe I can be endeared to that, or maybe be humbled by it or whatever. And, it was, the Jennifer Valcast, who is one of the girls who coordinates this, she said, I'm going to say something to you. It sounds big and it sounds cheesy, but it's going to change your life. Yeah. And you've done 10 of them. I've only done, I think, 2 or 3. And each time you're meeting and discovering people and hearing their stories and seeing things that you've never seen or experienced or heard. Yeah. And each time for me, especially that trip, it made me realize all the things that I have and worry about that don't matter. Yeah. And all the strife and struggle I think I go through, and watching these young men and women go through tenfold before 9 a.m. And it really sort of readjusted my complaint list. Yeah. It's like what you said.
You don't want to complain about things after you're seeing these, these men and women just deal with it. And that's their job. Yeah, they sign up for it. But at the same time, it is for a cause. It is for a purpose. But I agree. It does change your life. I remember the second one I did, again, this is like the height of everything. I went with Drew Carey and Jimmy Schubert and a few other great comics. It was
what a show!
A total like roller coaster of emotions. But I'll never forget
power hitters.
Oh yeah, it was a fun one. It was like, you had to keep your own on that tour. But
yeah,
we went to this makeshift tent. There's maybe 100 soldiers out there. And I just finished my set. I was going to get some water, and this young soldier, maybe 22, 23, came over. He's like, man, thank you so much. I was like, oh yeah, please, thank you. We're always weird when they're thanking you. It's like, thank you for your service.
You're like, what? I can do this because your boots on the ground.
Yeah, and then he was just kind of like, thank you, and just he looked dizzy. I go, are you okay? He goes, this is just the craziest thing. I go, why? He goes, well, we had a company that was pinned down. We had to go I just came back from a firefight. I think we might have lost somebody. I don't know. We brought some people back. One or two is wounded, but we got them back here. And as soon as I come in here, I hear people laughing, and I walk over and I see Drew Carey, and then I'm watching you, and I'm watching this guy now, and he's like, it's just surreal. Like, and he was processing like all of it, but he's like, he was basically saying that it was a good distraction for him, given what he experienced, I think maybe like an hour or 2 hours ago. And again, it's one of those things where you're just like, my God, like that's fucking crazy. Like you're telling jokes again, like to go back to like where comedy brings you or who you meet or the experiences you have. Like that's an experience in comedy I'll never have again, where there's somebody like with a gun shooting, trying to rescue his compatriots. And then you're in a tent and you're watching Jimmy Schubert, talk about chicken and eggs. It's like, what the
like being on the back lot of Sony.
Exactly. Yeah.
Going through all the shows.
Yeah, like, what the fuck is going on here? The poor kid. But it was one of those things that always stuck with me.
I have such an embarrassing story to tell.
Yes, please. Let me get my knife and fork. Yes, please.
This is going to be a big old bite of embarrassment for you. Not for you, but about me, for you to enjoy.
Very excited.
So, I try to educate myself as much as I can on new scenarios and situations and sort of, especially with the USO, knowing what the limits and the boundaries are, especially as somebody who's, stand-up doesn't really have a lot of boundaries. I mean, obviously most of us don't, because that's kind of the name of the game. But, I'm not the cleanest comic, as they say. And the tour we were on, we were with the Joint Chief of Staff. We were with General Dunford.
I like where this is going. Okay. I'm enjoying this already.
Who was like one of, he's basically the main man in the military. Yeah. And this was his retirement tour. And it was a stacked tour. It was myself.
This is great.
It's gonna be so bad.
This is the mark of a great comic. You're setting it up. You're leaning in the coil, and I can't wait to spring the trap. So yes, this is a retirement. What's going to happen now?
I have in the back of my mind every time I go on stage to work at the height of your intelligence. But for someone whose comedy is playful, that's constantly a fluctuating scale. And so it's Sean White, it's Wilmer Valderrama, it's Milo Ventimiglia, who came as Wilmer's friend. It's Matthew Frost, who's literally the strongest man in the world.
Right.
And Jay Days, who was a DJ out of New York. And it was just like a packed group of people. We all bonded, I'm sure you've experienced that as well, because you're in such unique experiences and you all just kind of become a pact. We still have like a chat thread where we message each other.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was a lot of fun. But so we get dropped in, we were in Iraq. I forget the base. It was actually it was Baghdad. We were in Baghdad.
Oh, nice.
And we were in the city, and literally bombs are going off on the perimeter of where we are. And so, I don't know if you've experienced, but you get the badges off of their uniforms. Yep. You get tokens. You get, the
commander
military
coins,
commander coins. You're getting pins and all these like decals and items that matter, mean something to the soldiers or to the commanders and all of that. So things are just coming at you all the time, and you're also trying to process. I'm in frickin' Baghdad,
war zone.
War zone. I'm smelling new smells. We were in a freaking, help me out, the vest, the bulletproof vest.
Oh, the bulletproof vest. Yeah. Kevlar armor. Yeah.
As someone who always considers her uniform before she goes on stage, this was, a totally unique experience where I'm like, well, I'm wearing 50 pounds of
those things are not light. Yeah, that's right. They're not light. They're
no.
Yeah.
And you're very conscious of it. So there's all these things that are changing, and someone hands me a mini flag, a folded flag.
Right.
Now we all know what that means.
Sure.
Now, when somebody gets a folded flag, there's a fallen soldier.
Yeah.
And I knew that, and I knew that before. And
let me take a deep breath. Yep, I'm getting ready for this. Yep, here we go. Here we go.
I feel like the way to grow is to put yourself on the line and take accountability. So this is me taking accountability. And no, this wasn't televised. There's no reason for me to take accountability other to highlight the fact that we all fuck up. And to remind myself to function at a higher state, which is hilarious because that's usually what the state I'm in. I got this little mini folded flag,
right,
and it just was handed to me before I went on stage, and I made some joke. I was like, well, I got dropped in Baghdad, and I...
Oh no. Oh no.
I got dropped in Baghdad, and I needed a tampon, and all they gave me was this little flag. I panicked, Steve, and I went deep down. God. I went down to the barrel of my intelligence. There's no intelligence in that barrel. It was pure desperation and salaciousness.
My God.
What to do? I just went blue.
And they brought the flag to half-mast during your sets. Oh my God.
They're like, a soldier's not the only one who died. Oh my God. And I didn't even know what I had done until I got off stage, and I just was sitting looking at this flag.
Did
and
it
I
get
was just
quiet?
like,
was it
well, it was quiet, but they're so receptive
still supportive and yeah.
They're still supportive.
Yeah.
It was quiet, and I was like, oh, that I think I did something.
You fucking did something.
I did something, and it hurt so bad. I was like, oh, I don't want that feeling again. And I'm just sitting alone in the green room, and I'm just kind of like looking at this thing, going over what I said. You ever have those moments in life where your recollection is just this? It's just a slow fucking burn. It's
burn in the hard drive.
Have you used slow burn for a title of something?
I haven't yet. I shall. Slow burn. That's pretty much my career.
It could be your midlife crisis TV show.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a slow burn.
Well, I felt that in the fucking green room. And please tell me you've had those moments in your career where...
Oh, yeah.
What can you think of anything that sort of could make me feel better about myself?
Everything leaves you? By the way, what happened? What happened? What did he say? What did he comment or was it secondhand?
It was secondhand.
Somebody said.
And I think it might have been Wilmer who was like, you know what that flag means, right? And I was like, I kind of thought about it in the green room. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, there's so much going on.
And then it's like, guys, there's the time change. I'm just like,
I haven't eaten in a day.
Yeah,
we were in Poland yesterday. We're in Baghdad today.
Oh my God.
We did like 13. I think we did 13. I'm trying to think of how many freaking stops we made in it was like 8 days or 10 days. Oh
my God.
The schedule was packed because there were days where we had 2 shows in different countries. It was obscene.
You're literally on fumes on those things because you're halfway around the world, and when you should be sleeping, you're awake on stage performing.
Yes.
And by the time your body clock gets acclimated to whatever time zone you're supposed to be in, then you come back home, and now you got to reset for another week too. It's a brutal thing. But again, it's like one of those things where it's like, can I really complain about sleep when SEAL Team 6 is right over here? And, it's just like, God.
They haven't slept in a week, and they're wearing undercover beards because they're infiltrating, a militia, a rebel militia. It really is.
But I'll tell you, like,
such a crazy
in the Middle East too, like yourself, it's got to be something totally different, a totally different experience, because when you're with people from the region, they truly, like, over there, I believe it's so archaic in terms of how they treat women, especially in those pockets. There were times where the female comics we were with or whatever, I mean, these men were just staring at them like they hadn't eaten for months or something. It was disgusting, and I felt so uncomfortable for them. So I don't know. On one hand, you're glad to be on these things, but it does open your experience to the world and understanding how great we have it over here and the advances we make. Even to the beginning of the conversation, it's like, oh my God. I mean, over there, it's like non-existent.
It's backwards. Yeah, it's like they're still functioning in a time that we've already been through and have learned and evolved from. It is strange. It's so wild how that happens. And, we had such a huge security detail. Oh my God. We landed in Poland and we were with the representative of it was the Polish embassy, the head of the Polish embassy.
Wow.
And she was like the English liaison.
Mm-hmm.
And she got out of her car and she looked like Cruella DeVille's happy sister. Like she looked like Cruella DeVille's like more evolved, not killing puppies sister. She had like this bright red hair and this like Givenchy jacket. And I'm like, where did we land? Are we in a Wes Anderson film? What is going on? Is this really the
real person? Yeah.
Are we in a show?
Right.
And
yeah.
She had this security detail around her. And I have a thing for Eastern European men, especially big ones. Mm-hmm. And we're all on the bus hanging out.
This is why we bond, because preach, sister, preach. Yeah.
And there's some girls, like all the guys brought their girlfriends and, so there's couples, but there's women there. There's a lot of women in this group. And we're watching the security detail and there just was this one tall drink of Polish kielbasa flavored water.
That sounds disgusting, by the way.
I know it sounds disgusting, but once you get it in there,
water. Okay.
Once you take a swig,
okay,
you finish the glass. You finish the glass.
I believe you. I will believe you. I will leave it at that. I don't want to daydream. I don't even want to think about things like that. But that's okay. I'm here for you.
Thank you for the moral support.
Yes,
I was there. I had brought my boyfriend, who I was dating at the time, with me, and in that moment, I just kind of regretted it just a little bit because of this big man. And I was sitting on the window, the seat closest to the window, and I saw him, and I just was like, "Oh my God!" And I kind of like looked around just for someone to support me.
Right.
And Kelly Pickler was there too. Kelly Pickler was on tour, and I turn around and she goes, "All the girls," and
really?
like all of us were just like,
"Oh wow, okay."
And he kept eyeballing me, and I was like, "Damn it, man! I gotta be faithful. I'm over here in Poland with got my freaking boyfriend with. Fuck you, love."
Oh. Do you think so? It's kind of like an eyes wide shut kind of thing, huh? With you're still talking about him today, so you and Nicole Kidman talking about the naval officer.
I am. I'll never forget him because there's this one moment where we had sort of ended our tour. I think we ended it in Poland. Yeah, we started in Norway. We ended in Poland. And we had like a wrap up party. Mm-hmm. And everybody was there. There were, just the Joint Chiefs of Staff, his wife and his whole group and everybody. And I had gone upstairs to get something out of my hotel room, and he was there. It was because the Polish ambassador, her door was there, and they were each on either side. And I just walked by, and we just locked eyes, and I was like, "This is like such a fucking perfect scenario. We're in Poland. You're a security guy. There's a hotel room, and my boyfriend's in it."
And how soon after did you break up with the boyfriend?
Oh, we actually broke up in quarantine, so he hung on for a little bit. Yeah, but if he was not there, I'd probably be in Poland.
Comedy tour. Here we go. It is interesting because when you're talking about that, it reminded me of I've been going down the Citizen Kane rabbit hole recently, and
really,
he just trying to learn everything I can about it. And there's this great moment where the reporter goes and talks to his financier, trying to define what Rosebud was. What is Rosebud? Could Rosebud have been a woman? And the reporter's like, "I don't think Rosebud could have been a woman." And he's talking to the financier, and the financier, I forget the guy's name, but he was basically saying, he's like, he was recollecting the story of he saw a woman in a white dress on a ferry, it didn't last more than 5 seconds, but there hasn't been a moment over the course of a day where he hadn't stopped thinking about that individual. And it's just one of those relatable lines in a film that stays with you. It's like, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. So I think
those like little moments.
Yeah.
Those like real life meet cutes that don't evolve into anything, where you just, I even had a moment like in New York City when I was living in New York, and I got on the train, took it a few stops, and there was this guy sitting on the train across on the other side, and we just kept locking eyes. And I contemplated going over and saying something to him. I was like, that's weird. Just all the things you ruminate in your mind as to why you shouldn't, why you should. So I opted to not, and my stop came up, and I got up early so he would know I'm leaving, just in case. And I'm like walking over to the door, and I exit, and I'm like, oh, he's not going to get off. And I go on the stair, and I turn back, and he had run up to the window.
No.
He had run up to the window and just went like this. And I was like,
oh, no.
Never saw him again. And he was such a beautiful man. It was like such a cool, weird moment. It's a great memory,
though. Yeah, to have.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, wow. But I do want to follow up on like moments where you've been on stage, or even just in life where you've had such a, one of these moments with the flag where you say something or do something that you just want to erase from your memory bank.
I mean, where to begin? I've had countless.
What about on stage? How about on stage? Like maybe a show, or even in the green room, in the hallway, at the club, only because we, that's our mutual world. And
yeah, I mean, there's a scene I put in the opening act, that film I did that you graciously were a part of. But there was a
dream come true.
There was
you did
a part in it where Jimmy's doing crowd work, and he's so inexperienced. He says, "So, how are you ladies doing?" And they pipe up, and where's Dad? And it's like, "Oh, he's not with us." It's like, "No, seriously, where's Dad?" It's like, "He's dead." It's like, that's one of those things where it could kill the vibe in a room instantly. And I've had that happen at least like 2 or 3 times to me, where you think you're going to learn from it, but the third time it happens, you're like, you got to stop doing that. Like, you got to stop asking that question. Why the fuck would you ask that? It's the dumbest thing you could do. And then you come up with more creative ways to mold the clay and get to where you want to get to. But yeah, for sure, I've had countless situations. I think the toughest thing, especially early on when you're a comic, and I'm sure you know this, is that sometimes the comic will engage in the audience. The audience will say something that strikes a chord or a nerve, and it gets to you. And the 2 or 3 times that happened to me, it was always racial. Somebody would say something to me that was racial, and I took it to a degree where I wasn't a comic anymore. I was a guy on stage that was affected by that, and whatever they said, it worked. And so I got into a fist fight at the Comedy Store over it. I got a scar in the back of my head here from the comic strip Live, when somebody hurled a bar stool at me and it split my head open, and I got 8 staples in the back. So like, those experiences are so horrific at the time. But even when the cops came to me and said, "Do you want to press charges against that guy?" I said, "No." They said, "Why would you not press charges?" I go, in my moral compass and principled state, I said, "No, it's my lesson to learn. I've got to be better than that situation." And so, yeah, it sucks to get gashed. It sucks to get in a fist fight. It sucks to let yourself go and go, fuck it. But it's all part of the learning curve over 20 plus years of doing this, to go, you're in control. And now you're in a situation where you've got to pull the strings in this room, keep your cool, defuse the bomb, cut the blue wire, and keep everybody laughing. And at the same time, that person that just insulted you, the challenge is now, can I make that asshole laugh?
Yes.
So instead of giving in to the inhibitions and going, I want to fucking destroy this guy and blast him in the fucking face, you got to go, no, but that's not the job. The job is to be a comic. The job is to be better than any situation given to you, no matter what it is. And it's like we were talking about earlier, the muscles of stand-up comedy. Another muscle is the element of surprise and being able to roll with it and keeping your cool, because we've all seen this. You've seen people lose their cool, and the minute they do, you lose the room.
You lose it.
Losing the room is the worst thing that can happen to a comic.
It's so hard to get it back.
Oh, brutal.
You're an animal trainer and the bear is hungry and you've got no snacks.
I always think it's like farting on the first date. The date's over.
Well, that's how I introduce myself. I'm the daughter of a flatulent man.
The apple does not fall far.
It doesn't fall. The apple doesn't fall fart from the tree. So stupid. You can't.
It's great though. It's great. You can't turn it off. That's awesome.
Wait, I do want to talk about you making one of my dreams come true. About casting me in the opening act, even though my scene got cut, which is normal. Those things happen.
It happens, yes.
And I am sending a murderer to your house, unless you find the file, and that's what this is all about.
Yes,
we're gonna need that. We're gonna need that file. No,
I know where the file is somewhere. It's on a hard drive. I know where the office is, so I do know the scene exists. Yes,
the scene exists somewhere, which warms my heart.
Mm-hmm.
The opening act, which is a autobiographical story of your life. Obviously, you probably took some, you took some liberties and exaggerated some.
Yeah, I mean, once Jimmy hits the road in the film, it's all everything that happened from him going on the road to the end. That's all based off of everything that's ever happened to me. And as much as they're my stories, you have a story just like that one, or a story just like After the Bar, or a story just like that on the radio. Like, these are all relatable things for comics, especially, and the comedy fans. So, and I appreciate you doing it. And yeah, like you said, it's what sucks is the casualty of cutting your friends out, or cutting scenes you love, or jokes you love. I mean, there was Angela Johnson came and spent a day and did this one thing, and it was a stunt, and she did the stunt and she did all this stuff, and it was this great buildup. But again, there's just things you gotta just slim it down to keep the 90 minutes. And what sucks is that story is paramount. Even though this bit in the film isn't as entertaining, it's not as funny, it is a cog to the engine that keeps the story driving forward. So
yep. It's just one of the, it's one of the casualties of the creative process of making a film. And for you, you've done so many different projects. You've done TV, film, and you've been in a stand-up for so long. But this film, how was it different for you? How was it difficult? And was there anything in the process of making it and it coming to fruition that you would have done differently, or maybe a lesson you learned?
I think it's weird answering that question now, because when it all happened, it happened so quick. Mm-hmm. I'd written it, I'd given it to my friend Vince Vaughn, and he read it and liked it pretty quickly. And we recalibrated a lot of elements of the story to just tighten it up. And funding happened very quick. And then the decision was, do you want to be in it? And I said, well, I'm too young to be like an established headliner. I don't aesthetically look like a grizzled veteran. And I'm too old to be like a fresh-faced, doe-eyed young comic. And I feel like I'm too old to be like the Playboy kind of guy.
Right.
That's the feature act. So I was like, look, I'm just happy it's being made. So I went ahead and directed it. And, I'm still very, very glad I got to have the experience. Beyond, it's one of the best experiences of my life. But I do think that when you do these things, you do them to enhance your career and help your career out. And a part of me does regret the fact that I probably should have been in it to some capacity in one of the roles.
Yeah.
But it came out, and look, at the end of the day, I got to make something with my best friends, and then I got to make something with a lot of people that I respect and appreciate. And you're somebody I always enjoyed watching when I'd sit in the back of the Improv and run into you. And I was just like, I just like your presence. I like you on stage. I think you're funny. And that's why, everybody that's in it, even like Angela Johnson, for example, just like is somebody I really respect her stand-up. And
I love her.
If I had the opportunity to do something like this, I want to include people that I appreciate, and know years from now, when I'm on my deathbed, I can look back and go, oh my God, I can't believe I got this moment in time with all these talented people and got to make something pretty cool. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's the one thing that always stood out to me about you was, and similarly, I felt this with the person I met only once, with Bob Saget. And I'm talking about the vibe. Bob Saget was pure love, and you have the same energy where your ego, I've never come across like an inflated ego with you. You're so present and available and vulnerable, and you just have a really great energy about you, which is really not common, and not just in our industry, in the world.
Well, yeah, I do agree with you on our industry for sure. It is absolutely not the norm, and I've had countless conversations with folks where they say, "Wow, you seem pretty like mentally healthy." Like,
yeah,
not
where do
the
you
normal
lose your
stomach.
shit? Where's your wife? Let me talk to your wife and children.
I have a lot of Nazi memorabilia I'd like to show you in this closet over. No, just I think I had a great upbringing, but I always appreciated comedy. I think I've always gravitated to people that I feel like yourself, like when I'm watching you on stage, when I'm watching Jessica Kirsten on stage, when I'm watching, the people I really respect on stage. It's like people that are still coming from a fun, positive place. So again, like, performance wise, when you're performing, like, that's where I gravitate more towards. I don't, I respect certain comics for sure, but I don't, if I'm going to spend my time watching somebody, I'm going to spend time watching you, Kirsten, Bert, people that are just fun, like a good vibe, somebody that you'd want to hang and have beer with. That's why, there's some comics just like, I get it. It's funny, but I can't.
I don't want to, I don't know you. I feel that way. Like sometimes you watch comedians, you're like, you've done a 20-minute set. I don't know who you are. I want to know who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a difference too. When as we get older, you want, even like Gaffigan, I mean, he's talking about food, but you still know who he is. It's like, he's just kind of like a lazy, like a really lazy guy that enjoys eating like an 8th grader. It's like, I get it.
With a little bit, like a little tinge of anger. He's got just a peppering of this underlying anger, just enough anger that really, and I always loved his self-talk, like that sort of Gaffigan-ism of what's he doing? What's he gonna do next? Like, and Kirsten has an element of that too in a different way, which really came out in the movie with De Niro, not Downey Jr. Where, because she was like a comedy coach for De Niro on that film.
Yeah.
And he sort of adapted that self-talk, turn around to the wall energy that she does, which I thought, I was like, oh, that's so cool to see that made its way to the film. Yeah. The one thing that was so cool on your film, the opening act, we did a scene. My scene was in Build-A-Bear.
Build-A-Bear, yeah.
Right. Did you use that name? Did you get to did you license that?
Yeah, they actually were pretty cool about it. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was like create a cat. I don't know if you had to like make your own.
Yeah. Like the shitty Zares version of like the Zare Jordans instead of
Zares Jordans. They're out of Dubai. They're hot. They're the hottest thing. It was such a cool experience, like there's very, we only get firsts for one time, and that was like one of the firsts for me, like a big production, as far as like being in films. I've been in other smaller situations, and you had, Jimmy O Yang, who's just he's so adorable and so talented. Did I say his name correctly? Would it be terrible if I did?
Yeah.
Okay. And Debbie Ryan, who has had such an amazing career and is so funny. She's very so funny. Me being the cashier in that scene. And the coolest part for me, besides like having, seeing you direct and you being there and feeling so supported and being around these talented people, and it was so well organized and it just was super professional, was your co-producer.
Oh, Billingsley. Yeah. Peter Billingsley.
Oh my God. Like when I tell you I checked like 4 boxes that day of like just bucket list things, because I grew up on like Christmas one of the most iconic Christmas movies ever.
Well, you'll be happy to know he's shooting a sequel to that right now. They're doing a sequel.
I heard buzz and I wasn't sure. But looking at him, he looks exactly the same, just with some grays. And I had to, when I tell you I had to fight the urge to tell him he was going to shoot his eye out, because I know everyone says that.
Yeah.
I know everyone says that,
Mhm.
or, you know, any other of the most quotable that you can think of from that
Yeah.
movie. It was like the anchorman of its time, really, when it came to the quotes you could muster up from it. But it was just such a cool thing, and I'm like eternally grateful for it, you know, that I got to experience that and be in a moment where I felt supported and meet an icon, and, you know, somebody who, you know, you and I, we are not the closest people, but we know each other.
Sure,
And
yeah, of
you're
course.
a person who, in the scene, you know, around town in the comedy scene, I would enjoy seeing you and saying hello to you. But,
Of course.
you know, I don't know if I have, but I wanted to thank you for that opportunity, and you trusting in me and having me be a part of a project that I know was important to you. And obviously you had options, and I'm so fortunate that you put your money on me.
Oh, please. Look, it goes
And you
both
still owe
ways.
me money. Yeah, I didn't get
I
the
do
check.
owe you money. I do owe you residuals. Yeah. But I will say it goes both ways, because as much as, like, you know, you could say thank you, believe me, the gratitude is on me, because the gratitude is extended for you taking the time out of your day to come in for even just a scene, just one day. And I know there's some people that have the credits you do, or even less credits, that would say, well, I want more than a day, or I want XYZ. There's all these demands. And that was another thing I was exposed to, in terms of like agents demanding things from people that I knew my friends were not asking for. And sometimes there were a few times where I got some requests from friends of mine where I'm like, you know, you just got to
It's
put the
so
phone down and go, "Oh
hard.
my God, are you kidding me?" And then you got to go back and go, "Okay, let me explain the situation to you." You know, but again, you were
That's the
super
real
cool.
element of this industry that's like
Yeah,
nobody really knows about. You know, you're put in a position, especially when you are the director and it's your thing. Now, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it makes me think, like, is there an enlightening experience in that, where you sort of have a friend who you thought was a friend, and then you go, damn?
Oh
Or
well,
do
I
you
mean,
go,
look,
I understand?
that's occurred over quarantine and coming through COVID. There were people that I did not, I didn't hear from per everything, and there were just people I missed, right? And there were people I reached out to and was like, I haven't seen you at the club, and I was just calling to say hey, or I miss you, or people that I really genuinely had a strong friendship with, that I'd call and be like, hey, I love you. I hope your family's okay. I hope you're okay. Whatever. And it's amazing, like over the course of that time period, and even now as we're coming out of it, just I found I've lost a lot of friendships and relationships due to it, but it almost kind of like through osmosis just let me naturally know who the people are that genuinely appreciate my company, and I appreciate their company. So I've really kind of it's been narrowed down, and I don't know, it's kind of crazy. That's an aspect I didn't expect to have post, or even as we're still going through COVID, you know. So I don't know if you had the same experience, but I certainly did.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a narrowing down of a lot of things. It was narrowing down specifically of toxicity and weighted vibrations or frequencies that aren't conducive to my growth,
Hmm.
whether it be substances, people, places. I definitely, for me, it was different because my relationship ended and my mom died in quarantine, so I had to deal with loss on a multitude of levels, and I definitely indulged in unhealthy things, and
Hmm.
you know, sort of trying to find my balance through it all. But
Sure.
I also, in that process, was able to get rid of a lot and realize what things were holding me back and what things allowed me to fly free a little bit more. And,
Sure.
you know, the losses, it's somebody really smart, my life coach. It's such an LA thing to say, but people on this podcast know I have a life coach. I have a
Sure.
personal strategist that I work with, because I am interested in growing, and the people I know that are successful do certain things, and I do those things.
Sure.
And his whole feeling and philosophy is, once you strengthen your relationship with loss, you will gain everything.
Right.
And I think quarantine definitely taught me to lose better
Hmm.
and you know, and what to learn on the other side of that. You know, I think we hang on to people because we're essentially, in some sense, we're afraid of being alone.
Right.
And we're afraid of, you know, there's a lot of fear-based decisions we make. And so we keep people around almost as just like placeholders, and things around as placeholders. And it's almost like a hermit crab where you're just grabbing all this stuff and putting it in your shell because you think it's going to make you feel whole.
Right. Yeah.
And in fact, it's just a distraction. And so I got rid of a lot and learned to sort of navigate through life without certain people. And like you said, people didn't call and people who did. I'm sure, did you experience like people who did call who you were like, oh, I got
a little shocked. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And,
it's interesting.
And you nurture that. But, you know, it's, I mean, maybe this is just because of what has happened over the last 24 hours. But, you know, I had done a documentary on the amazing Jonathan, and he passed last night.
That's right.
So
oh my God.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
No. I got news of it last night, but I went and saw him on Thursday, and I spent the day with him, with Joel, the subject of the documentary. Just this great relationship between him and Joel, and we got to spend the day with him. And then the next day, I left to go to Phoenix to do shows, and Joel said he asked where I was, and then he said, "Oh my God, I got to get ready for the show tonight." Now he's in hospice, he's in bed, he hasn't performed in years. And there was still like the element of within the chemistry of his brain, knowing the backlog of who he is and his identity as a performer. I got to get ready for the show tonight. And then just realizing where he is again, you know, I don't know. It's just like having done that and then seeing him and visiting him and knowing what he's gone through and everything. It does, like, I think it's like one of those things where you just reassess, like, how important is all this, you know? I mean, truly, how important, I think, like, things definitely matter. Goals matter. You want these things to occur. I mean, obviously we're in entertainment. We dream of, you know, expressing ourselves via story or joke or specials or whatever. And yes, they're all important. They are important because they're a part of your identity. But I'm just wrestling the last, I guess, 72 hours, especially the last 24 or 12, I should say, of just like, what is it that truly does matter? Because when you're seeing somebody, you know, I'll always envision Jonathan as like this behemoth, this wrecking ball, this frantic, violent, hilarious ball of energy on stage. And then to see how it kind of descends and starts to end. And he got a very peaceful ending. He got to be at home in his bed, and he was surrounded by, you know, loved ones and really, really his best friends. And but you just see it, and it goes by so quick, right? It does
go by so quick. And how amazing that he was able to pass on in that way. Cause that's, I think we all wish that for our loved ones. We hope it for ourselves. And too often people don't get that, you know, they get ripped away from life in brutal ways. So that's a silver lining in the whole process of it all. It reminds me of something that Robin Williams said once, where he says, you only have like I have it here. You're only given a little spark of madness. You mustn't lose it.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
In the way you're describing, you know, violent. I love that adjective, being violent on stage. I think that's such a great way to describe the madness of performance and just the madness of living, the madness of existing. And, you know, I don't know if you know any local guys, probably not from where I'm from, because I know you definitely have hometown pride. And I experience the same thing, you know, being where you're from. And I'm from upstate New York, Syracuse, and my local guys are like Moody McCarthy, Nick Mara, Gomez Adams, who's like one of the radio guys there, and Mike Goss, who was a local guy. And he actually grew up and would work with Bobcat Goldthwait being another local guy. And Mike Goss and Bobcat were like best friends. And I inadvertently knew Bobcat through that whole process. But Mike was my dad's best friend. And my dad used to go on weekends with Mike doing, you know, Mike would do stand up.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
This is before I was even born.
Wow.
And my dad told me that when I was younger, and I didn't know what it meant because I wasn't in the industry yet. And now I have such an appreciation for his desire to be with his friend on the road in a different way. Because my dad was such a fan of comedy and loved in comedy. He loved comedy and is the reason essentially how I found it and how I came to know it could be a career. But I say that all to say Mike Goss and I became friends. I started stand up 20 years ago when I was 19. And so Mike reached out to me right away when my dad told him, he goes, anything you need, you let me know. I'll let you know what to look out for, what to consider. If you want to run ideas off of me, I would often call him and be like, what do you think of this? And if I had a big audition.
Sure.
And he always wanted to know, how was the set? How was the crowd? Like just the whole inner workings of it all. He loved the mechanics of comedy.
Yeah.
And he would say often, and I think of it sometimes when I'm like, oh, I'm tired. I just want to stay in. I don't want to go do a set. That fucking 15 minutes, 20 minutes of work. And we're like, oh.
Yeah. At 8:00 at night. I don't want to get out of bed. What the fuck?
I'll think of Mike saying, you've got to be a tornado.
Yeah.
That's what he used to say to me. He's like, you need to be a fucking weather advisory. You have to be a winter storm warning. You need to go out there with fervor.
Yeah.
That's why
you never let him down. I'll tell you that much, because you do bring that to the stage, but you do it with charm. You're so
sweet.
You do it with charm.
You better stop it. Tell Brad Pitt. Tell him.
We're going to Poland first. We're going to Poland first before you drop anchor with Pitt. Okay.
I'm coming to Tom Segura's shows forever now. Did you see Tom met him?
Yeah.
And Ryan Sickler. I don't know who the fuck you guys think you are, posting up next to my husband, who looks like a high school art teacher right now. A female.
He still looks very, very handsome. He's still
gorgeous.
Got it, right? Yeah.
He's freaking gorgeous. Well, I really appreciate you making time. But before you go, I want to ask you one more thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something, since we kind of touched on it, quarantine, even though we're hopefully coming out of this. What are some ways that you think people can sort of get out of a rut? Because I think a lot of people got into a rut in quarantine, or maybe got into sort of bad habits, or maybe realized what they were doing wrong. And, what are some things that you did to sort of survive that time, or maybe thrive in it, that you think would be useful for listeners?
I was always, even like at the height of COVID and everything, I think I was one of the first to get back on the road, because the improv.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Like the week after George Floyd had gotten murdered, I was in Miami. Like it's just crazy. Like I remember flying and nobody was on the airports. The planes were empty. It was like, oh my God, this is just a crazy experience. But through it all, I was always like, well, I want to be a good citizen. I want to listen and receive the information, but I also still want to keep like experiencing things. I still want to do things. I still want to get out there and live my life. And, my family and I, we'd get in the car and we'd drive around. We'd just go places we hadn't been before, or, do things. We took a road trip across the country, and, as things are starting to kind of slightly open up, but in California, I think it's so easy to get, stigmatized by the politics of everything. But like,
yes,
I don't know. I moved to Tennessee like a year ago, and it was like 2017 here. And I was like, well, there's no outbreaks. So I was always just I don't know, to anybody, I guess, that's out there that's questioning, it's so easy to go in those depressive states, but there's so many wonderful things to keep you occupied and keep you positive. And I found myself listening to music and reading books and subjects I'd always wanted to explore, like Citizen Kane, or, the Endurance, which was a ship that went down in 1918 in Antarctica. It was like, these are things I always wanted to learn more about. And I took the time over the course 1.5 to 2 years to say, now's the time to explore these things. And now's the time to read all those books I bought at Hudson News at the airport and never read, with
the receipt.
With the receipt as my bookmark. And I get 8 pages in, I'd fall asleep on a plane and be like, oh, I'll just read it later. And I never read it later.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
So I read it later. I read it over the course of these last few months. And I don't know, I think like what we were talking about earlier, I think nurturing those relationships that really do mean something to you, that are meaningful and impactful. It's like, go to Vegas, meet him up. It's been a while. Let's all reconvene. Let's make a new memory. So
that's so funny. I just texted Josh that. I'm like, I'm coming to Vegas because Josh Wolf left where you are and he's in Vegas. And I'm like, I miss you. I'm coming to Vegas.
When he left Nashville, I was like gutted because I just started to really hang. I always saw him in passing. Like we see each other in passing, and I always liked hanging out with him. I like the 10-minute catch-ups in the hallway. Great. But I was like, I got to know him. And I was like, man, what a great dude. I really look forward to hanging out and spending time and getting to know Josh and working with him. And then fucking gone.
Rip.
First snowflake, his wife's like, I'm out. It's like, you fucking pussy.
And Bethany's like, it's chilly. We have to go back to the desert.
Yeah, I got to get a sweatshirt. I got to go. It's like, what
I need a beanie.
Yeah.
Justin Martindale says, everyone in weather, no one in LA can handle weather. When it turns 60 degrees, they're like, oh, it's brisk. I need a beanie.
One of the best hair in comedy, Justin Martindale.
It's getting better and better. It's unreal how it's like the more money the kid makes, it goes right into his hair.
Exactly. Yeah. I would go everywhere horseback if I were him. It's just like, just let it like.
He does have the physique of the men who are on the cover of like a Danielle Steele romance novel. Just like a painted man on a huge Clydesdale with the sunset in the background. That's what he looks like.
Now, are you coming out to Nashville anytime soon?
I was just going to tell you, I was looking at my schedule. My other podcast girl with my friend Carly and I am looking it up right now. I know I'm in Nashville. We're actually coming soon. We're there one Sunday, April 10th. Are you in town?
Sunday, I'll make sure I'm here because
come on the show.
Sundays I'm always around. Yeah, would love to. I would love to hang with you.
I would love that, and I'll probably be in town for a couple days, so we should definitely grab lunch or dinner or something and hang out. I would love to see you in the flesh.
100%.
And hang out, but definitely come do the show for sure. Is there anything you've got coming out that you want to promote? This will be up next week.
I'm just hitting the road. As always, stevebyrnelive.com is where my tour dates are. I'm getting ready to launch a podcast with Joe Gatto from Impractical Jokers.
I fucking love Joe.
Banked a bunch of episodes.
He's my favorite.
What's that?
He's my favorite. Don't tell Saul. Don't tell Saul.
I won't tell him, but I'll tell him.
Don't tell him.
But he's just the best. I've had a great time working with him. And I do a podcast out of Zany's Nashville called Comedy Pinata. We just launched it, where comedians sit down and we watch stand-up comedy and we break down the bits. And
that's fucking
if you have
funny.
Time, I'd love to have you on because it'd be a total blast. And you give me a list of names of people and we watch it and we just sit there and all these stories come out. It's been so fun. It's been cathartic. It's been cool. It's been great hearing all these stories from all the comics. So
I watched an episode and I wholeheartedly agreed with everything that was said about a particular comedian. So.
Yes. Yeah. Well, fuck Jerry Seinfeld. So I don't know if that's the one, but I don't like him. Fucking hate him. But I would love to spend time with you and get to hear your thoughts. On some comedians that we can go over. Yeah.
That was the one.
Yeah. Biggest turn.
I mean, it's like the best kept secret in the industry.
There's not a diaper big enough to put his material in. He's a horrible person. A horrible person. What's the deal with being a fucking asshole? I mean, he's just.
Are you the one? Are you the one he said? Are you the name he said on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee?
I don't know. It might have been. I don't know what he say.
Are you friends with? Can I ask you insider info? And if you need me to cut this out after, we can. Are you friends with Bridget?
No.
Okay.
I know who you're talking about, but I'm not friends with her. No. But,
you know Bridget?
Yes. Are you talking Bridget Everett?
Yeah.
I don't know her personally. Yeah.
She's so magical. She was definitely a New York City staple, but it was her episode.
Okay.
And now I'm gonna need to go back and watch it because he mentioned a comedian's name that they bleeped out.
Yeah.
Where he said he couldn't fucking stand him. And I wondered, there was a handful of people I was curious about.
Oh, I'd love it if it was me. I'd wear it as a badge of honor because believe me,
you should use it as a credit.
It is reciprocal. He is a piece of shit. And there's not even any corn in that. It's just there's nothing positive about that turd. It just, what a horrible person. I can go on and on about it, but yeah. I like Bridget. She's funny.
Great.
Yeah.
She's so funny. Oh God, this really made me laugh to my core.
A horrible person.
SteveByrneLive.com. I look forward to whatever you're working on. I hope that you're inspired to write something again and that I can help in some sort of way.
Trying to sell 2 right now. So if I get one, believe me, one of the first calls I make is to make it up to you.
I can't wait to be in another deleted scene, which I would be more than happy.
You got to be in it. Yeah, for sure.
I honestly, there's a handful of people that when I have on, I kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone with like getting to know, catching up sort of vibe. And I feel that from you. Like you're definitely somebody who I genuinely like talking to, and I would take up 2 more hours of your time if I could, but we're going to have to save that for Nashville.
And Nashville for sure it is. And then you got to do me the solid and come on mine.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah, brother. It was so good to hear from you. So thankful that you made time, and I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you. Yeah, definitely.
This was a healthy distraction. So I really appreciate this. And this has got my mind off of things, much like that guy that I met in Iraq. So I really appreciate it. I couldn't think of a better individual to spend time with than you today.
Well, thank you
for having me on. Appreciate it.
I'm going to have to listen back and think about whatever that joke was you said I needed to write down. I will do that. I'll have my producer get on that and just. All right. Well, thank you so much. It was so good to see you.
You got it. Absolutely. Thank you again.
Bye.